Hi, this is Seth Mosley, and you're listening to the Full Circle Music Show, the why of the music biz. Today in studio, we have Barry Graul, guitar player of MercyMe and veteran industry musician. He's been working in this town for 27 years, so you can imagine he brings with him a lot of experience, wisdom, and insights for anyone wondering how to get a job in the music industry, and shares perhaps one of the coolest pieces of advice for a young up-and-coming musician that I've ever heard. In fact, you'll probably be hearing me use it at some point. But before we dive into the interview, just a quick word about the upcoming Music Makers Boot Camp. Are you an aspiring artist, producer, or songwriter? Have you ever wanted to break into the music business but didn't know where to start? Would you be interested in spending a weekend with some of the leaders in the industry? Well, here is your opportunity. It's called the Music Makers Boot Camp, and it's happening January 25th through 28th live in Franklin, Tennessee. It's going to be happening at the legendary Sound Kitchen Studios, where records like Taylor Swift, Paramore, Keith Urban, Bruce Springsteen, and many more have been made. You'll be learning in these rooms where multi-platinum songs have come to life, and we'll be bringing in some of the best and the brightest who are doing it every day to share their wisdom, knowledge, and experience. This is a great opportunity for you to take your music production, songwriting, or artistry skills to the next level. The music industry doesn't have to be some big secret. Me and the other coaches really want to share what we are doing with you. Come and learn it with us. Registration is now open at FullCircleGoesLive.com, or you can text the word Boot Camp. That's BOOTCAMP, one word, to 44222 to receive info about it. Again, that's FullCircleGoesLive.com, or you can text Boot Camp to 44222 to receive info on it. It's limited to only 40 spots, so get yours now. These sell out quick, so don't miss your chance. I'll see you there. So let's head into the studio in Franklin, Tennessee with Barry Graul. Barry, thanks so much for taking the time to be here today. We're on the Full Circle Music Show here in Franklin, Tennessee.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks.
This is kind of your hometown now, right?
It is. It is. I would call it the hometown. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it's been here off and on since 88. Left and went to Texas in 2004, then came back in 2012.
Is that where you're from originally? Is Texas?
No, from Baltimore originally.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Bart was from Texas and still is. Yeah. So
once from Texas.
Everybody years ago converged on the little town where he was from, Greenville. And we lived there for a long time. I joined the band in 2003, but it made more sense for me to move from Nashville to Texas for the commute and everything, just working together.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've had a pretty long backstory being in the business, about 27 years now.
Yeah.
So what was your first kind of foray into it? How did you get your start?
Well, I grew up playing in club bands and stuff like that and dance bands. I'm 55. So, I grew up in the 70s playing music and all that. And I got to a place, I was kind of the black sheep of the family, accepted Christ at an early age, but man, I just wanted to be a rock star, Yeah. You couldn't even see the paneling in my room for all the posters. I was a crazy kid, but and I came home and I didn't study. I played my guitar all the time. So being studious, in the school world wasn't my bag, but long story short, because I could go forever, it came down to a point where the band I was in was disbanding, and all I had to do was walk in and basically just play one note in another band, and I was right back in the whole rotating schedule that I was in, playing bars and, stuff like that. And the Holy Spirit, man, for whatever reason, said, don't do it. And I didn't do it. And I called him and said, I'm not coming in.
Wow.
And that led to me finding a Christian band down the road at another church. And we just played cover music. We did some writing and stuff like that. And I have met so many other people on the road who tell me parallel stories to what I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
I really felt the tug to move to Nashville and do music full time. I didn't know what capacity that would be in. I just know I wanted to play my guitar and allow God to use, my talents. And
so you weren't doing it professionally at this time? You just kind of felt like,
Well, I mean, we made a lot of money in the
Yeah.
band that I was in.
Yeah.
I mean, we were making thousands of dollars playing. We were one of
Yeah.
the top dance club bands in Baltimore for a while. So
wow.
professionally, no, because I always had another job. But in my mind, it was professional. I'm like,
Right,
I'm
you're
playing
making money
4 or
doing
5
it.
nights a week. I was tired.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And get up and my day job, they would go, "Hey, is this your hobby?"
Yeah.
Because they knew I was burnt.
Yeah.
So I played with a Christian band down the road, and I just wanted to do it more. And so, another long story short, my wife and I worked with the youth at church, and we went to a conference center, took the kids to a conference center, and Chris Rice was playing there, which that's what he did. I don't know if people know that about Chris, but he was never, ever in Nashville. I think I used to see him once a year because he was always doing camps with kids. And he said, "Hey, man, why don't you come to Nashville and spend the week with me?" And this was before he ever had a record deal. Reunion was beating down his door all the time to trying to get him to sign. And so I went and stayed with him for a week, played football with Will Owsley and Des Dickerson, who used to play for Prince. And, I'm like, man, this is crazy. What is going on? Drove me around town, showed me around town a little bit. And then, and leading up to that, I used to go see every band that I could in Baltimore, traveling bands, the Garmo and Key, a ton of them. I would somehow weasel my way either backstage or just to get to talk to somebody in the band. And every single one of them across the board said, you have to move to Nashville and you have to stay there 7 years.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. It was as if all of Christian music got together and said, this is what we're going to tell everybody.
The Lord's number.
This is it. Move to Nashville, stay there 7 years.
I've never heard that.
It was
that makes
unbelievable.
So much sense.
I couldn't believe it. And so I went, well, I guess that's what I have to do. And so I came down to Nashville, found a place to stay. It happened to be across the street from my then girlfriend, my now wife's cousins.
Yeah.
So I knew somebody. And I also knew a friend of Chris Rice's who lived here. I got a job at Opryland Hotel for a year. And after that, I got my first gig with Rick Kua.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my entrance. And I've been working ever since.
How did you get that gig? Because, I mean, you're going from Opryland Hotel to your first...
Because I sat next to somebody in church who was the guitar player who played. He was playing for a band called Russia at the time, but he had played for Morgan Cryer.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready to do a tour. It was the Rock, Rhythm, and Rap Tour, 1989. Awesome. Rick Kua, Morgan Cryer, and Michael Peace, the hip-hop dude. And so Mark sat next to me, and he, we became friends. I used to go hang out with... He lived in a house with Brian Lennox, and all these guys were coming over, Chris Rodriguez, and wow. I was like hanging out, like just drooling, like, what am I doing here? But it was a cool time, and so that Mark got me an audition with Rick when they had a utility guy, Eric Scouten. He was going to play keyboards for Morgan Cryer and play guitar for Rick Kua, but the guitar thing didn't work out. And so they were like, well, we need to get another guitar player. And so Brian Lennox made a demo tape for me, 2 songs, the only one I ever made, and submitted it. And they're like, well, why don't you come audition? So I got the gig.
That's awesome.
That was it. I couldn't believe it, And
that was full-time, just touring?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a sideman, you bounce from gig to gig sometimes, unless you land on something that's really busy. And so we went out and did that tour, and then it was, one-offs from there and stuff. And so I would fill in with temp work, actually just driving cars at the auto auction, which come to find out, so did a lot of my other musician friends. And so, and that was it. And then, went from there to all the other people that I played for. Yeah. And so
I know, DC Talk was somewhere in there, Audio Adrenaline, Tate, and MercyMe for the bulk of it, right? Is that
Yeah, it was all sideman work up until 2003 when Toby was going to make a record and he didn't have a lot of spring shows and said, if you guys can find other work, find other work. And I happened to get a call from Audio Adrenaline saying, hey, we're going to do a tour with MercyMe. We're going to take an extra guitar player besides Tyler. Yeah. And so I was just like, let me pray about it. Yes. And it was like 55 cities and so I found a sub to fill in for Toby, but it was at the end of that tour that MercyMe had asked me to join.
Yeah.
And when I was playing for Toby, we had actually done a tour, a Festival con Dios, with MercyMe the fall prior to that, and I got to know the guys and love them, and play golf together in the movies, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Prior to that, and so that was just, being on tour with them in the spring. Then when I was playing for Audio, it was like family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about, because you touched on that a little bit earlier, being a sideman. I know a lot of people listening to the show maybe have aspirations of being a singer or a songwriter or an artist. Maybe some of them even have of being a sideman. Can you talk about what is that? What's the difference between that and being the guy at the front of the stage?
Well, the sideman is, I always considered in support of the artist that you're playing for. You have the artist, the singer or whatever. They don't play anything. Maybe they do. And then the sideman is the drummer, the guitar player, the bass player that they hire, work for hire, basically, to back them up. And that can change from tour to tour, or sometimes if you're lucky, they keep the same band for a long time. And so I was one of those guys, and you get the call and your schedule allows you, go do it, and you learn the songs, and that was a big thing, I think, just because of my personality. And I think I was set for that role a long time ago when I had to learn 1 or 2 new songs a week to play in the cover band that I was playing in back in Baltimore. Man, at one point we had 7 AC/DC songs in our set, and then on the other end of the spectrum we're playing disco.
Yeah.
And funk. So man, my vocabulary got pretty wide for a long time. Even though I really like the rock, I really, really liked R&B and funky stuff too.
Yeah.
So that whole education played into me being a sideman, and learning how to figure out parts and sounds and stuff like that. And really, I mean, it's to be a servant. You're there to back them up. You're not the limelight, unless they give you a solo or something.
Yeah.
But you're in the role to support them and their artistry and what they're doing. And so I just always try to go with that mindset.
Yeah. So you've never had the aspiration to do your own records. You love wearing that hat.
I always have the aspiration to do my own record. I'm not sure what that looks like, but it's at the end of the day, man, I am blessed to be where I am, and I don't know what it would look like, but at one point I want to sit down and do a bluegrass record, then something else, blues or something. I love the blues, but who knows? Yeah,
because you play. I read somewhere that you play dobro. Is that kind of a...
Well, I'm a dobro owner.
Yeah.
No, actually, I met a guy, Paul Beard, who Jerry Douglas plays his dobros, and a lot of other people do. He lives about a half hour from my in-laws. And so I bought a dobro about 7-8 years ago, and it sits in the corner sometimes for months at a time. Not lately, though. For probably the last year, I've been on it multiple times a week, and sometimes when I go home, that's all I play. It's such an expressive instrument, and I'll get it out and play it. Bebo came and did a Christmas tour with us, and Mike and I backed Bebo up, so I played a little dobro with him, and once in a while I played on our stuff. It's on the song All Right. So there's a couple of times I'll get it out without being too country, or we'll put some distortion on it or something.
Right.
But no, I love it. I mean, what's funny is I sent Paul, the manufacturer of the dobro, I sent him a text. I said, "At what point will I actually start playing like Jerry Douglas?" And he said, "This is exactly how the text went." He goes, "You do, space, 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 space," when he was 13. I was like, "Oh, sad trombone." But no, I love it. The finger picks are the hardest.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah.
Well, I'm a producer guitar player, which means that I know enough to, edit the crap out of myself.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that I've never even, I bought a Ganjo, I bought the finger picks, and it's just, it's something you have to just do over.
I'm so much better with just my fingers. When you put picks on, it's like, if there's some way they could attach nerve endings to
exactly.
That's what it is. You're like, what is this foreign object on the end of my fingers, and how do I make it work?
I think that's your next career move, is to create like prosthetic finger picks.
Finger picks. Well, I bought it. I traded in a guitar I don't know, what is it, about a year and a half ago, which I won't say what guitar it was, but for a pedal steel. Whoo, man, that's a tough instrument.
Yeah.
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 And the strings are a lot closer together.
Right. Have you busted it out on any tours yet?
No, I did play it on our Christmas record. Not
Yeah.
so well, but somehow it made it in the mix.
Enough.
Way back there.
It was close enough for
Close
rock and roll.
enough. Brown said, I can tune that.
That's awesome. You've spent a lot of years now. Has the majority of your career been in the Christian music industry?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you said you kind of started doing the club thing in Baltimore, and then once you got your gig with Rick Kua.
Yeah, it's been solely. I did a country session one time up in Kentucky. I auditioned for Martina McBride and didn't get it.
Yeah.
The guy that had been playing guitar for her for a really, really long time just was calling it quits. And man, they went through, I don't know, 20, 25 guitar players.
Wow.
And her original guitar player ended up coming back. But they told me I had the best tone.
Okay.
So, all right, good deal.
Yeah,
it was rough. That's the only audition I never got, but
Yeah.
it was a rough time learning those songs. I was on the road. When I got home, I had like one day, and it was like 6 songs. So I knew going into this wasn't going to be good.
Yeah.
But
so I imagine that's being a sideman or really kind of modern musician. You've got to be able to learn and retain songs really quickly. Do you have kind of a technique that you've used for that? Do you use the Nashville number system, or have you just been kind of like...
I find out when I read that I'm stuck reading. That doesn't embed the song into my brain as much as sitting there learning it just from memory and repetition.
Wow.
Yeah. If I start to read something and then I'll be like, oh, where's that chart again? And so I steer away from charts.
Yeah.
Except I went out and did a weekend with the waiting one time, and I read charts the whole time, and I couldn't stand it.
Was that because just having to learn the song super fast? Or?
Yeah, it's just, you're stuck staring down at the floor or whatever it was, and I just not the way I like to play.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional player, and, I like to really feel the whole thing, and I don't do that reading charts. Really great session players probably do both, but
sure,
that's not me.
No, that's good to know. But back to the Christian music question, I'm sure that being in it and around it, I mean, you have a pretty good awareness of what it is and why it exists. Can you speak to that a little bit? Just, was it a decision that you made, like, I'm going to be in the Christian music industry, and that's just...
Well, I mean, that just stems from where I was in my spiritual life, coming out of playing clubs and stuff. And, well, I mean, when I first heard of Christian music, the first band I heard was Undercover. It was like a punk band or something like that. And so I had no awareness really of Christian music, back in the 70s. It was nothing like it is now.
Yeah.
And so I started to learn about it. And to me, it was full on 100% ministry. I saw music as a vehicle to meet people's needs, for Christ to speak to people in different ways. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I can't say why I did it, really. I just did it, and God opened doors.
Yeah.
And I walked through them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kicked them open. If he didn't want me to do something, he slammed the door. So, yeah. There's a reason I didn't get the Martina McBride gig.
Right. Well, that's
I
what I was going to say.
No big deal. Yeah. It's country anyway. I'm kidding. Joking.
Well, talk about that, because, I mean, that had to be, I don't know, I imagine that was kind of difficult in the moment, but did you have anything you kind of learned from that, like not getting the gig?
More preparation time. I didn't have the prep time that I should have.
Yeah.
I was on the road in a horrible situation trying to learn songs, and that's not the way I like to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In hindsight, I probably should have just went, I don't have the time, or can I audition sometime else? Yeah.
Gotcha.
Push me back a few days or something, but I went and did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just buckle down and focus.
Buckle down, focus, yeah. Get the tones right, everything. Parts. She's a stickler on parts.
Wow.
Which I am too.
Yeah.
When I find a part, I dig in and love it to the point where it's boring, but I get behind it because it's energy.
Yeah.
So
instead of just noodling around.
And it's the foundation for a singer they get used to hearing certain things, whether those things are on their records or things that you figure out in a rehearsal. They want those things played the same every night. Yeah. Most of the artists I play for, like, that's their key to sing a certain phrase, or, you know what I mean? It's just, they made the record for a reason. Yeah. It sounds like that for a reason. Yeah. Yeah. You know, so just be a servant and play it right, you know?
That's a great question too, because I can imagine that that's changed a little bit over the years in terms of, okay, what are you going to play on the record versus what are you going to play live?
It's definitely changed in the band scenario now that I'm in MercyMe. Yeah. Now I try to pull the parts as much as I can, but you know, the way the layering happens nowadays, sometimes depending on the song, it sounds almost like a pad. So we have to either make up a part because we can't really hear the parts and remember the parts that we played on the record. Right. Or, you know, the parts that we can decipher, pick the best one that works live, you know, that's a constant, you know, just a really great part from beginning to end, maybe. Yeah. Or, you know, the best ones in certain sections, and that support the song in the best way. So that's the way we go about it nowadays. And that's just the progression of music. Sure. You know, and so.
Where do you guys kind of fall in the spectrum of, you know, trying to pull stuff off live versus using tracks, or is it kind of a both?
No, we use tracks. We don't, I mean, we'll add, if there's like really cool, like synth sounds or even tiny little guitar parts that we think should be there. And that might just be like a tone or something, you know, really cool tones or squeaks, whatever. You know, that if we're both playing parts, you know, we can't reproduce that. So we'll put little stuff like that on tracks just to fill out that spectrum.
Yeah. Gotcha. I know a lot of people are kind of, they've probably gotten over it by now, but you know, no, I don't want to use tracks. It just doesn't feel real. And, you know,
you know, I'm definitely that guy. You know, sometimes I don't even have the tracks loud enough, but then when I hear it, I'm like, where did that part come from? Who made that call?
Exactly.
But it's important. And, you know, we'll run some BGVs too, just to mix in a little bit, just to make it sound a little thicker. But
sure.
Man, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. Milli Vanilli, man.
Yeah, exactly.
People are going, who?
Yeah. All tracks, right?
All tracks. Yeah.
Crazy. So talk about creative process now. What are you feeding your creative engine with? What's driving you? Are you listening to stuff that's pumping you up, or
Dobro?
Lots of Dobro.
No, man, I try to stay current. You know, I listen to a lot of things. The streaming now is incredible. So Spotify, you know, they have those categories where it's like all new stuff and just, you know, some of it's great, some of it's not so great. I really like Alabama Shakes these days. Yeah. Man, that's just cool stuff. Yeah. So anything funky for me these days. I'm not so much into heavy rock anymore like I used to be. I have moments of it, you know, I still respect where it came from, and, you know, but some of the pop on the radio now, I don't relate. I just don't relate, man. It's a flash in the pan, some of it. And, you know, here today, gone tomorrow, but that's music. Yeah. But I think smart business people and musicians draw from that what they can, and, you know, respect it somewhat, you know, and then the creative side of it. I mean, there's always something, whether it's the beat, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I'm a big groove guy. You know, it's got a groove. Yeah. And so, I'm like, ooh, that's a cool groove. The rest of the song's terrible, but man, whoever came up with that was money.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you can totally derive inspiration from anything in a song. So
absolutely. Yeah. So just keep the ears open. Definitely.
So is your next single going to be like 808s and, you know, sub drops?
Yes, my solo record.
Your solo record, Dobro and 808s.
Dobro and 808. That's actually kind of cool.
Pretty cool. Go home and work on that.
Thanks.
From my perspective, I don't know if it's still this way or not, but me getting to know, you know, you guys from more the inside of the industry, you guys have an interesting creative process, or at least did at one point. I don't know how you're making records now, but you would kind of go in and just make these incredible epic tracks of music even before the top line was written, like before the melody and the lyrics came together.
That's kind of similar to the way we do it now still. Yeah. It's a different animal now a little bit because the producers are so involved at this point, and so it's
Sure.
more people in the room kind of doing the same thing.
Sure.
We get a track and just go to town on it, and because it needs to be inspiring for Bart to sing over, and so to get him inspired to write to it, lyrics and melody.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming up with a great piece of music for him to do that. And I'd always heard that's the way Michael W. Smith did it. I don't know if that was,
Yeah.
I think they would go in and do tracks, and then he and Wayne Kirkpatrick would just sit down and do lyrics. Is that true? I think.
As far as I know, yeah, because Michael is an amazingly brilliant instrumental arranger.
Exactly.
And
so come up with a great piece of music,
Exactly.
and then that's going to drive your emotions and the creativity to come up with great. Because everything this day and age with Pro Tools and all, you can rework the track to make it fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to come in the back door and go, okay, this pre-chorus doesn't work, or shorten the pre-chorus, or we need one here, shorten the bridge. All that can be chopped up. However, so to get the vibe right, to get the inspiration going, that's key right there.
Yeah. I just thought it was so interesting because I guess you weren't in the room on this, but I came into a session with Brown and Muckala on a couple of y'all's records ago, and you guys had these finished tracks that, Reed Shippen had tracked and pretty much mixed, and everything was just like, wow, this is a record. Like, I could just listen to this.
Yeah.
But it was so funny to me because I had never seen it done like that. Like Dan or Brown would cycle through the song titles, and it was like Foo Black or like Phil Leopard or something, like a combination of like Foo Fighters and Black Sabbath or something like that.
Exactly right. If there's something that sounds like it, and the second, then we'll attach half a name to it. Whatever.
I just thought that was awesome.
Just we had to have that so that we could identify the songs. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's Foo Sabbath.
Man, I actually have some on my phone. I should read through a list. It is hilarious.
I just thought that was awesome, though, because it was like, to get to the end result, there's a million different ways of getting the same place. A lot of guys in Nashville will sit down with an acoustic guitar, and that's the old school way of writing songs. Like, if it sounds good on an acoustic, then it's a great song or whatever.
Which is also true. There's no formula.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
From my perspective, there's no formula because we've done it so many different ways. Bart's penned, a handful of songs just on his own at the piano.
Yeah.
And he's not necessarily an incredible piano player.
Sure.
Just Bart, myself, and Mike sitting around with acoustics. We've come up with, some cool stuff. Or me and Bart and an acoustic, and or Mike and Bart and an acoustic. It's different every time. Maybe Bart just has a lyric and a melody, and then we put the music behind it.
Yeah.
So it's, setting too for us was a big deal when the budget was there.
Setting.
But the setting as in studio where we were working, man, the most incredible studio time was when we went to upstate New York, a place called Alaire, and it was right next to heaven. And it was in the fall. It was like October, and the leaves were starting to change, and so you live there, you eat there, they have accommodations. You just walk down, get breakfast, and right into the studio. Yeah. Our phones hardly worked. I had to go outside and hang on to the corner of the building to get them to work. And man, that was an incredible experience. I think we were up there for like 3 weeks.
Wow.
But for 4 or 5 records, we went out of town and did that. We got away, Idaho, El Paso.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the money's there, that's a great way to do it.
And was that kind of tracking stuff, like just making these big music beds for Bart to write to?
Right. What we would do, or some of the stuff may have been half written at that point. Yeah. Ever since I joined the band, there was a youth building in Greenville, Texas, that we would go into, and we would say, okay, we're going to write for the record. And anybody that had ideas would bring their ideas. We would set up in the youth building. We would set up a multi-track so that we could just bounce down to stereo to have what we needed. We weren't saving any of these tracks. I don't know if we ever did. Yeah. But we would, for 2 or 3 days, just hammer out 25 musical ideas. And then we would listen to those, figure out which ones were best. Bart would listen to them, ride around in the car. Hey, I've got an idea for this one. Hey, I think this is really cool. This one, crap, we need to throw that away. It's not going to work on this. Sounds like 2 records ago. And so then we would take those. We would have a pre-production meeting with whoever the producer was. Normally at that time it was like Brown,
Yeah.
or early on Pete Kipley.
Yeah.
And then we would say, these are great. Let's focus on these 12 or 14 or 10 or 8, go in the studio and see what happens. And by that time, Bart sometimes would have maybe half the lyrics written for some of them, none at all, maybe for some of them. And then we would go in, and normally in the studio, because it sounds so incredible when you're in there, you end up writing a couple more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or more than that.
Just
3, 4, 5.
right?
Yeah, it sounds so good. When you put an incredible compressor on a really nice old Gibson acoustic, you can sit there and play all day and like, oh wait, I have 80 more ideas.
Yeah.
Wait, it's just that way in the studio. And so we always came up with stuff in the studio.
Yeah.
Finally Home, we were stuck. We had a song together that was sort of sounded like Jet and sort of sounded like Lenny Kravitz. We called it Jet Lenny. There's one of those wonderful titles.
I love that.
Yeah, Jet Lenny. And it was a rock song. We got stuck on it. I mean, we literally, like, we're like, and at the end of the day, it's not us. At that point in our career, it wasn't us. And this is when we were in Idaho. And we got stuck, and everybody's like, let's take a break. We'd been working on it, and everybody's beat down. And Mike and I we never quit playing. So we were out in the studio noodling, and we just started coming up with the music for Finally Home. And Bart had already had the idea for Finally Home in his mind, which actually we were riding in the car one time. He's like, man, I got this great idea about, my father's perspective, in heaven. He didn't get to see, because my father died so early, he didn't get to see all Bart's accomplishments and his kids and, all that stuff, and great marriage. And so that song was written in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
I think he had most of the lyric in the vocal booth, and man, we were all in tears.
Wow.
Yeah. And, and we're like, and it's kind of sounding country, I'm over there playing some fake slide, Mike's hammering out the chords, and the Train kind of drum vibe, and we're like, you think it should go on the record? And Brown's like, well, of course. He comes with the talk back. Of course, you made a grown man cry. Of course, it's going on the record, and it became a single, and it's an awesome song, and so that's one of those times in the studio that, man, the Holy Spirit really showed up.
Wow.
Like, we're stuck. We're like, God's going, you're not a rock band. This is what I want you to say, And he showed up. It was incredible.
Because that went from Jet Lenny to this,
which that was like it could have been like Foo Fighters too, but it was like just European kind of a thing too. And which I love Jet too, but I'm glad it,
ended up being the other thing, right?
Yeah, being Finally Home.
You might have had grown men crying for other reasons then.
Yeah, please don't play that rock music anymore.
That's awesome. So kind of back to you being around this industry for 27 years, has your role had to change? Like, have you had to learn new skill sets or ways of doing things to adapt?
No, not really. I mean, the adapt part comes with technology, I believe. So I guess the answer would be yes. Yeah, the recording process easier now sometimes, just because of Pro Tools and all that. I mean, I remember I was in a band with a bass player named Jim Lee Sloas for a while.
Yeah.
And I was actually singing, but we weren't singing in the Pro Tools. We were singing in the ADATs.
Right.
And so, man, that is work.
Yeah.
There's no cut paste.
Yeah.
What
was that band? Would I know that band?
We were called Hullabaloo.
Yeah.
We were just trying to get mainstream deals, so we showcased in New York and LA. It didn't work out, but that's okay. But we played around town a little bit. It was fun.
That's awesome.
What was the question?
No, just
I'm like Mick Jagger. I don't really remember titles. I don't remember the last thing I said.
No, just you kind of were talking about adapting a little bit.
Yeah, just technology. Yeah, that was my point. Yeah, just the way technology's gone into the easiness of recording, and just even just being a guitar player, the tools that we have now. And man, if I would have had the tools back then that I have now to be able to learn songs, to be able to slow a song down and have it retain the key that it's in, to learn guitar licks or parts, oh my goodness.
Wow.
I used to put a stack of quarters on my LP records and slow them down so I could learn Van Halen licks. It's the only way I knew how to do it.
That's amazing.
Because my brain didn't work fast enough. So, I mean, it's like slow it down, you know.
That's hilarious.
Eruption, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do it. There was no other way.
Yeah, and that wasn't, and that wouldn't even been close to the right key either, right?
No. So everything. So I'm having to, adjust for all that. And then I got this cassette thing that you could slow it down, but it wasn't the same key.
Right.
It would just slow the lick down. Like, that was. But now, my goodness, I can do that stuff on my phone.
So what do you do? Like that's actually kind of crazy. What do you use for that now? Is there an app that you?
Actually, Amadeus.
Amadeus.
Yeah, Amadeus it's really cool, man. You can do all that.
So
slow it down.
You just throw an MP3 in it.
Yeah, throw an MP3, slow it down. You know,
that's pretty awesome.
Keeps the same key. It starts to sound a little funky if you get too, it starts to get a little phasey and stuff. But yeah, man, it's incredible.
All in your iPhone.
Well, no, that's actually on my computer.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
But
still pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know a lot of guitar players now, I don't know how much studio session work you're doing nowadays, but a lot of guys will have, their own Pro Tools studio at home, cut tracks, send back and forth to producers and do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Has that been something that you've gotten into or not as much?
Not really. I have a studio at the house, but I actually use Digital Performer.
Yeah.
I have Pro Tools. And I used it for a while. I need to upgrade my computer these days. That's where I am right now. But man, just for songwriting and stuff, Digital Performer is great for me just sitting at home. So I have not gotten into the bounce back and forth. I'd love to. Yeah. But I need to upgrade some stuff. But that's where I am right now. But I haven't done a lot of sessions since I've been back. I think just a handful. Yeah. But it's a whole new, since I've been gone 8 years, it's a whole new crop of players, and they're so much better than I am. So just let them go.
Well, I mean, a lot of the times it's not even a better or worse thing. It's just they've done their 7 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's still amazing.
I had to start over.
Yeah.
I'm at year 4.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 years from now.
3. Honey, I'll be doing it again. I'm going to make it.
That's amazing. I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. What do you think they meant by that after having been in it for 27 years? Was there any significance in truth in what they said in terms of move to Nashville, number one, for just being here, and number 2, the 7-year thing? What do you think they meant by that?
Nashville is the Christian music hub. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a good part of it years ago that was out in California. There may still be. I'm not really sure. But this is where all the record companies are, the management, booking agents, all the musicians, and most of the musicians, most of the artists, I mean, there's a lot of artists, I guess, in bands that live out of town now. Atlanta's a big place for a lot of people, Texas, but by and large, this was the hub of Christian music, and I guess still is. And so, just to be here with all the networking and everything, and I mean, my first gig came from me sitting next to somebody in church. So it's very relational. Yeah. I mean, a demo tape for what? I mean, I don't even know if people do that anymore. Yeah. I don't know. It's word of mouth. It's somebody else going, yeah, he's awesome. And, he can play, he can sing, great guy, good hang on the road.
I think a lot of people fear that word, that networking thing, because it sounds kind of slimy or like.
Well, and I'm not Mr. Network. I mean, I know people that'll call people just, hey, just checking in. I'm not a check-in guy. Yeah. If I happen to see you, I happen to see you. I'm not proactive in that. I don't know. There's something weird about that for me.
So for
other people, it works. That's great. I have no judgment against them at all. It's how they want to work. That's killer. Yeah. My wife she's always through the years, get out and pound the pavement. You should get out and early on, take your demo tape, just drop it off some record companies. I'm like, what? What? They don't care. She doesn't know. I love you, honey, if you listen to this. But, no, I never saw it working that way. And I never heard anybody tell me it worked that way. So but it's Nashville. This is where everything is. And so, yeah. And the whole 7 years, I don't know why they said that. To me, that was just a perseverance thing. But I'm pretty sure it took 7 years till I got to the point where I was seeing some regular money come in, and making a living at it and establishing myself. I'd started to do sessions. I was doing a lot of sessions before I moved to Texas. And so, yeah, it's probably 7 years, whatever city you move to become part of society and I don't know, if you move to Seattle, you're going to become part of the Seattle scene or San Diego scene or wherever you move to, Columbus, Baltimore.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they were specifically meaning music. And so, 7 years. So I'm like, and I worked with people at Opryland that, they're like, well, I've been here a year and a half. I'm going back home, and I was like, you got to give it a chance.
Right.
They told me 7 years.
Yeah. Which, that's amazing, though, for somebody to say that. That's like the greatest piece of advice ever, is like, just have realistic expectations.
It's perseverance. And I think that if you stick it out, and another thing that they used to tell me is that there's room for everybody. Yeah. There's room for everybody. You can find something to do.
Yeah.
If you have some sort of talent about you. I guess some people don't.
Yeah. Hopefully you figure that out before 7 years. I want to just jump through some kind of random rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
if you're ready for that.
All right.
First thing is your craziest memory touring.
Craziest memory.
Funniest, craziest, embarrassing, anything that comes to mind.
It probably happened to the keyboard player. When we used to drop this in one of our tours, the whole intro of the night started with a scrim coming down and we were all behind, we were all backlit. And so everybody saw our silhouettes on the sheet out front. Man, this top of the song, he went to hit his keyboard and his whole rig hit the floor. And so you're seeing all this from the front, and immediately I started playing the intro on guitar when he actually was starting it on keyboard or whatever. And so all you saw from the front, because we have this on film. So all you saw from the front, all these crew guys are running over like little flies, like, get on it and get his keyboard. That was pretty funny, like in front of a whole arena full of people.
Did you even realize it when it had happened?
I saw it happen because we're all standing backstage. We can see each other, and we're like, "Oh!" And there was like, "Play." What is life?
That's amazing.
Oh man, it was good. It was really good.
You may have already answered this question with the New York thing, but I was going to say your favorite moment working on a record.
That was it. Alair Studios, which they closed for a while, and then I think they reopened. I can't explain this place to you. It was a summer home for somebody who owned Pittsburgh Paint and Glass or something. That sticks in my mind. It's on the top of this hill. David Bowie liked it so much up there that he actually bought 10 acres of property on the way up. There's a real windy road to get to the top. Tim McGraw recorded there a couple times. Nora Jones.
What's the studio called?
Alair.
Alair Studio.
It's money. And there are two studios. There's one really big studio, and then there's another studio. It's a B studio, but there are not a lot of ISO rooms.
Yeah.
But the one we're in was just a cavernous, like chapel looking thing with a huge fireplace at the end, and it was so great.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful time of year, and so that was the most amazing experience. Probably because that was the first time that we went out of town to do that, to record, to live, and all accommodations, eat, sleep, and work in the same place.
Yeah.
And so that was just,
it's a little bit sad. I mean, I've only been in Nashville for 8 years. I guess just getting over the 7-year mark or something.
Yeah.
Right now.
How you doing with that?
Well, that's actually a pretty good piece of advice. I don't think it took me 7 years to start making a living at it, but you feel a little more comfortable, at least in your own skin after about 7 years.
Yeah.
Just, you know who you are. You kind of found your lane a little bit, and
I bet if you look in the record company bylaws, there's something tucked in there.
7 years.
It says that artist signed contracts tell everyone else 7 years.
Yeah, it probably is. Okay, desert island guitar.
Oh man, Les Paul.
Any particular one?
I have a 77. It was my first Les Paul.
Yeah.
for the guitar players out there, here's a Les Paul story.
Yeah.
So this was before eBay. There was a paper years ago in Nashville that was called the Trader's Post, and it was page after page of, here's amps and here's columns of amps for sale, guitars, columns of guitars for sale. Well, this guy, he was just a businessman. 3 Les Pauls, all 70s. There was a 77 Pro, which is kind of like a deluxe that I have. There was a 78 Deluxe and a 78 Custom. Any one of them for $500. And I only bought one. I only bought one. I could have had 3 Les Pauls for $1,500.
That's amazing.
All 70s vintage guitars. But, I bought the one because I just wanted a Les Paul. I have a 78 SG that I actually bought when I was a kid in 78. Wow. It was $300. And
what would that thing be worth?
I bought
now?
It used at a music store in Baltimore, and I still have that guitar today.
Wow.
I routed it out to put a Floyd Rose in it when when the whole 80s thing came around, because I had to dive bomb and squeal. But I filled that back in, and I made this metal plate to go over top the hole because you can't stain it anymore when you do that. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I love that guitar. I still play it. I take it out on the road every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Desert Island guitar pedal.
Timeline. Strymon Timeline. Love the delays in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
interesting.
Just, if I'm going to be on a desert island, I want some. I don't want dry guitar all the time. I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to create some kind of atmosphere.
Because you can get a little grit out of that thing.
You can, man. You just start dialing in the.
Yeah.
All the parameters. Oh, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Desert Island guitar amp.
Ooh. Marshall stack, because maybe somebody's going to have to want to hear me.
Exactly. So you're not bringing your little Princeton.
It can clean. It'll get clean and it'll get dirty. So I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Marshall? Any particular one?
I'll take I have a 78. I'll take my old 78. That'd be good. Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Last rapid fire question. Best piece of advice someone somewhere in the music business gave you?
That's going to have to be move to Nashville and stay 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I did that and I was not going home. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I heeded the call and did exactly what they said.
It's good.
So, yeah.
That's good. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up, I want to rewind just 27 years ago. Just picture you're standing face to face with the younger you about to come into this music business. What does that conversation look like?
Man, it would be a servant because of what I wanted to do. I'm pretty sure I wanted to be a sideman because I used to talk to all those people out on the road anyway. I was like, I can do that. I can go be a guitar player for somebody, and and it would be, I think the most important thing, I would tell myself, don't give up. Yeah. Don't give up. There's room for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, that's so simple, but I can probably imagine over the last almost 3 decades, there was probably a lot of times you thought about giving up.
Yeah. And man, it's a constant conversation with God too, because you have to rely on him.
Yeah.
If you're not relying on him, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Especially moving into this industry. And so, yeah, I needed the comfort of that he had my back and he was forging the way.
Yeah.
This was a weird thing one time. My wife and I took our youth camping, and my wife was sitting around the fire one night, and she was actually having a conversation with God and just saying, and she told me this the next morning. She said, I was actually talking to God and I asked God, do you really think that Barry's going to make it in the music? And she said the fire went and died back down.
Wow.
True story.
That's amazing.
what she said. So, that was confirmation for her, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of times that I pray and I wish I would get that kind of
confirmation. Yeah.
And sometimes I think God just knows when we need it,
Yeah.
So he obviously gave that to her.
Yeah.
In that
absolutely. Moment. Yeah. And she wasn't even my wife at the time. So it was just, but we were definitely thinking about it.
Yeah. And you were standing on the other side of the fire with like a gas can dump.
Me and God, we work together.
Exactly. Kind of last question. Do you ever feel like there will be a point in your life or in a music career where you'll be like, okay, I've accomplished everything I want to accomplish? Like, or do you feel like it's just an always expanding list of goals? Like,
Yes, I think it's the latter. Man, if you ask my wife, not anymore, but man, she used to get so frustrated with me. She's like, you're never satisfied. You're never happy. What more could you do? There's so much more. I really don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But there's so much more. So as musicians, you're always evolving. Technology is evolving. Music is evolving. You as a person, your surroundings, just, how you deal with music day to day, writing, I mean, you always think that next thing is going to be right around the corner, And I do think about doing records myself. I'm like, man, I could make one in my studio really easily.
Yeah.
I just don't do it, but I think about it a lot. I think about writing the next big hit for MercyMe or us as a band doing amazing things. I mean, the doors open for us all the time for different reasons. And, just as they do for a lot of other artists,
Yeah.
We did a USO tour years ago just to be with the military and try to give back and minister there. And that was incredible.
Yeah.
My dad was military, so to be able to do that. So a lot of different things. Yeah.
So it doesn't have anything to do with like being the first band on Mars or anything like that?
No, definitely not. Man, that would take a long time to get there.
I do wonder. I have.
There's your desert island.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, who's going to be the first show on Mars?
First show on Mars. It's going to be us. It's going to be us. Yeah, there's so many goals you can make up in your mind. And for me, sometimes it's just tiny little things. So just, get a new guitar.
Yeah.
Something that's and you get it and you're like, oh man, this, how many pedals have you bought that just, you're like, oh, I got to put that on a record immediately.
Right.
Yeah. And because it just opens up a whole new world for you. And so tiny little steps and milestones. Yeah. I think they will haunt me till I die. I don't know. I don't know. What's the end game?
It's a good thing and a bad thing.
The end game is heaven, but are we going to, will I ever be satisfied? Man, that's a terrible question, Seth.
It really is, man. Yeah.
I'm satisfied as a husband and, son.
Yeah.
So
it's good, man.
Yeah.
Well, Barry, thanks so much for taking the time to stop by today.
Thank you, man.
Story's inspiring.
It's been a blast.
The 7 years thing is, I'm probably going to turn around and use that for somebody else that comes up to me. It's like, hey, how do I get in the music business? Well, move to Nashville and stay 7 years. It's so concrete and so true.
Yeah, man. You got to dig in.
Yeah. But thanks a ton, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, man, absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, this is Seth Mosley, and you've been listening to the Full Circle Music Show, the why of the music biz. The show is produced by the Full Circle Music Company with editing help from Jericho Scroggins and Kaylee Ingram. Head over to iTunes, leave us a good rating and a good review. That helps us a ton. And make sure to save your spot. There's only 40 spots for the upcoming Music Makers Boot Camp. That's January 25th through the 28th, right here in Franklin, Tennessee at the legendary Sound Kitchen Studios. There's only 40 spots, so get registered at fullcirclegoeslive.com, or you can text Boot Camp to the numbers 44222, and we'll send you info about it. We'll see you next week.